Welcome to our deep dive into organizations.
Yeah.
I've got some pretty interesting material to dig into today.
Yes.
We've got excerpts from a Swedish textbook
Yeah.
about organizations.
Right.
And then we've also got some annual reports
Okay.
from two Swedish organizations.
Yeah.
One is Stadium,
Okay.
and the other is a large manufacturing company.
Okay.
And what we're going to be trying to do today
Yes.
is to figure out not just like what an organization is,
Okay.
but how they shape our lives
Right.
and their influence,
Mm-hmm.
and really this constant sort of push and pull between individual freedom and organizational needs.
Yeah, it's interesting because when I think about organizations, I often think about them as these big machines
Yeah.
that are just churning away.
Yeah.
And, I think we're going to uncover today
Yeah.
whether that's a good thing or a bad thing.
Well, that's a good question.
Yeah.
That popped into my head when I was reading through these
Mhm.
is, are modern organizations
Mm-hmm.
really serving human needs, or are they becoming like machines?
That's a provocative question.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that's something we'll be thinking about the whole time.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So let's jump right in.
Yes.
The textbook actually defines an organization as people working together to achieve specific goals within a defined structure and under cultural constraints.
Right. So it sounds pretty straightforward
It does.
on the surface.
Yeah.
But I think there's some inherent tension there,
Totally.
right? Like how much freedom do you have as an individual
Yeah.
within these constraints?
Right. And even the structure itself.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
like how does that impact the individual?
Yeah. Well, they actually break it down into
Okay.
5 key components.
Okay.
So you've got goals,
Okay.
you've got people,
Mhm.
structure, activity, and culture.
Okay, so it's interesting to think about like those
Yeah.
5.
Yeah.
And what came to mind for me
Mhm.
is that there are all sorts of organizations.
Yes. It's not just like big companies. They're
Yeah.
also like factories,
Sure.
hospitals,
Hospitals, yeah.
schools, even humanitarian organizations.
Yeah, anything where you have people working together.
Right. And also achieving goals
Right.
that individuals can't achieve alone.
Yeah.
So I think that's a key thing.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And it makes me think about this metaphor.
Okay.
Like, how they always try to use a metaphor to describe an organization?
Yeah.
Like, is it a machine? Is it an organism?
Right.
A brain? A political system? Even a prison?
Right.
Which one resonates with you the most?
I find the prison metaphor really interesting,
Yeah.
especially in light of some of the stuff we're going to talk about later
Okay.
with Chris Argyris's work.
Right.
But it highlights this potential for organizations to stifle creativity and limit individual growth.
Right. And is that because it's so focused on goals?
It could be because it's focused on goals.
Okay.
It could be because of the structure.
It could be the culture.
So many things.
Yeah. There's so many factors.
Yeah. And then, they can achieve good things too.
Oh, absolutely.
So, Stadium, for example.
Yeah.
They do these massive sports camps
Right.
for kids,
Yeah.
which is pretty cool.
Yeah. And that's a good example of an organization using their resources for something beyond just profit.
Right.
So it kind of enhances their legitimacy
Right.
in the eyes of the public.
And also for the individuals involved, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Gives them a sense of purpose,
yeah,
belonging.
Totally. It's like this constant
Yeah.
PR campaign almost.
It is. It's like this ongoing narrative that they're trying to create.
Right. They're trying to win us over
Totally.
and shape our opinions.
Yeah.
And ultimately maintain their power and influence.
Yeah. You've hit on something really important there.
Yeah.
And the textbook actually calls this institutional theory.
Okay.
So it's this idea that organizations adapt to societal norms can gain legitimacy.
So they're like mirroring.
Yeah. They're like mirroring
The value
of their environment to survive.
Yeah. And you can see that in the manufacturing company's annual report,
Okay.
where they talk a lot about their sustainability initiatives
Okay.
and ethical sourcing,
So
which tells you a lot about.
to gain legitimacy, or is that actually what they believe in?
Well, it's hard to say for sure,
Right.
but it definitely speaks to how societal values are shaping organizational behavior.
Yeah. And I'm guessing they wouldn't be talking about it
Probably not.
if it wasn't important.
Exactly.
Okay. So we've talked about this sort of external legitimacy,
Right.
but what about within the organization itself?
Mm-hmm.
What about the power dynamics?
Yeah.
It's not all sunshine and rainbows, is it?
Definitely not.
No.
Power is never equally distributed.
Right.
And the textbook talks about all these different sources of power. You've got reward power, coercive power,
Okay.
legitimate power.
expert power, and even personality power.
Right. And how are those evolving in modern organizations?
That's a good question. And I think one of the interesting things that we see in both of these annual reports is this emphasis on collaboration
Okay.
and employee empowerment and flatter hierarchies.
So are we moving away from that old command and control?
I think we are seeing a shift.
Okay.
Yeah.
Towards a more distributed approach.
Yeah, because I think organizations are realizing that that can lead to greater innovation and agility.
So even with this shift toward collaboration,
Right.
there's still this tension between individual freedom
Absolutely.
and organizational constraints, right?
Yeah, because you're still working within a system
Right.
with rules and goals.
Right. And that's where Chris Argyris comes in.
Exactly.
Okay, so tell me about Chris Argyris.
So he argues that traditional organizational structures create a mismatch between individual needs and organizational demands.
So what does that look like in practice?
So think about it. Organizations often prioritize short-term goals. They want specialized skills, and they have this top-down approach to decision-making.
Right.
And Argyris suggests that this can make employees feel dependent, subordinate, and ultimately alienated.
Alienated.
Yeah.
It's like that prison metaphor coming back to haunt us.
Exactly.
Okay, so it's a stark reminder
Yeah.
of the potential downsides
Yeah.
of organizational life.
And it kind of connects to Amitai Etzione's work on organizational commitment, which looks at the different ways that individuals relate to an organization based on the types of power that they experience.
So, like, how does that actually play out?
Well, so imagine a workplace where employees feel constantly monitored and micromanaged. So they're motivated by fear of punishment rather than a sense of purpose.
Yeah.
And that's what Etzioni calls alienative commitment. So they might stay in the job.
Right. But they're not truly engaged.
Right. It's like going through the motions.
Exactly.
Right.
But not feeling connected to the bigger picture.
So then how do you create an environment that has genuine commitment?
I think it's about shared goals. Autonomy. Opportunities for growth.
Right.
So it's about giving people a sense of ownership and purpose in their work.
Okay, so that leads us to another fun topic.
Oh, boy.
Conflict.
Yeah.
It seems like conflict is kind of inevitable.
It is.
Yeah.
Unavoidable.
Especially given all this stuff we've been talking about.
Yeah, all these competing needs and power dynamics, right?
Yeah. The textbook actually presents a structural model of conflict, suggesting that conflicts stem from how work is divided, how authority is distributed, and how resources are allocated.
Okay, so it's not necessarily about personality clashes?
Not always.
Or individual disagreements?
It can be systemic. It can be, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
And the level of formalization in an organization plays a role, too.
Okay.
So all the rules and procedures, social pressures can either escalate conflicts or mitigate them.
It's like this delicate ecosystem.
Yeah, it is. It's a complex interplay of factors.
Okay. What about the research on gender dynamics within organizations?
Yeah, so this is where Alveson and Dubilling's work comes in, and they highlight the persistent gender pay gap and the underrepresentation of women in leadership positions.
Yeah, and this is despite evidence of equal competence.
Exactly.
It's frustrating that that's still a thing.
Yeah, and there are different perspectives on how to address this. Some argue for a focus on efficiency. Saying that organizations are missing out on a huge talent pool by not promoting women. Others focus more on the ethical and political aspects, advocating for fairness, a better work environment for everyone.
And I think both are important.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this kind of leads us to this fundamental question about how we structure organizations in the first place.
Yeah.
Are hierarchies the best way?
Like, are they the most effective way?
Are they the most effective way?
To organize human effort.
Yeah, and the textbook talks about this idea of organizational crystallization.
What is that?
So it's this idea that hierarchy is necessary to create like a density and concentration of power for effectiveness.
But what if we're over-crystallized?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
And that kind of leads us to these alternative structures like markets and networks.
Okay, so like a hierarchy is doing everything internally.
Right.
Markets outsourcing.
Yeah.
Where do networks fit in?
So think of networks as a way to bridge the gap between hierarchies and markets.
Okay.
So they allow organizations to collaborate, share resources, leverage specialized expertise, but without those rigid structures.
But so like this more fluid and adaptable way of organizing.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there are actually two basic types of networks.
Oh, really?
Yeah. You've got true networks with lots of direct connections. And then you have structural networks, which are still hierarchical, but with a central broker connecting different parts.
So in a structural network, there's still a central authority figure.
Yeah, but their role is more about coordination and facilitation rather than command and control. So they're like a hub connecting different parts of the network and allowing for a more decentralized flow of information and resources.
Kind of like an orchestra conductor.
Yeah.
Exactly, bringing all these different pieces together.
Instruments together, yeah.
Yeah, okay, cool.
And just like different instruments have different strengths. Organizations in a network can specialize in specific areas.
Right.
Leveraging their expertise to achieve these collective goals.
So it's like valuing that diversity of perspectives and skills.
Yep. And the textbook actually identifies 3 types of networks. You've got internal networks, stable networks, and dynamic networks, each with their own.
So break that down for me.
Okay, so internal networks are basically companies that break down their operations into separate units that interact more like a market. Stable networks are more long-term relationships between organizations, often based on contracts and agreements. And dynamic networks are the most fluid and adaptable. They form and dissolve as needed to respond to changing market conditions.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And how does that impact the individual?
That's a great question, and that's something we'll have to explore further. But one thing's for sure, the traditional boundaries between organizations are becoming increasingly blurred. And these new models of organizing are emerging.
It's like a paradigm shift.
It is.
Away from hierarchies to these more fluid structures.
And that raises all sorts of fascinating questions about the future of work and leadership and the very nature of organizations themselves.
It sounds like we've only just scratched the surface here.
Yeah, we have a lot more to dig into.
But we'll have to say that for the next part of our deep dive.
Definitely.
So stay tuned because we'll be exploring the crucial role of leadership and how it's evolving in this new world of organizations.
I can't wait.
Me too. It's going to be good.
Welcome back to our deep dive into organizations.
So glad to be back.
We've sort of laid the groundwork, you know. We've talked about like the basic building blocks, the power dynamics, you know, all the tensions that are inherent in these complex systems. So now I think it's time to turn our attention to a really crucial element, and that is leadership.
Leadership. It's interesting how that concept has just like captivated thinkers for centuries. What makes a good leader? Is it nature? Is it nurture?
It's the age-old question. And there are so many theories about leadership. And you know, some people think it's all about your DNA. You're either born a leader or you're not. Others think it's a skill that you can hone through experience and training.
And then the textbook throws out all these different styles. Authoritarian, democratic, laissez-faire.
It's like a toolbox full of different tools.
Like picking the right spice.
Exactly.
In the dish.
Yeah, you wouldn't season a delicate fish the same way you would a hearty stew. So you gotta
adapt your approach.
Yeah, adapt your approach to the situation and the people that you're working with.
Okay, so we've got all these styles. But what about this core challenge of balancing tasks with people?
Yeah, that's the eternal struggle for leaders, isn't it? Like, how do you get things done, but also create a positive and supportive environment where people feel valued? This is where this concept of transformational leadership comes in.
Transformational leadership. It sounds pretty...
It sounds kind of grand, doesn't it?
Grand,
But it's essentially about moving beyond those transactional exchanges. You know, like the carrot and stick approach. And it's about inspiring your followers to reach their full potential.
So you're not just like telling people what to do.
You're not just giving orders. You're trying to ignite a passion in them to work towards a common goal.
That makes me think of like Martin Luther King Jr. Or Nelson Mandela.
Those are great examples of transformational leaders.
Who spearheaded these massive movements.
Huge social movements,
So that's like on a grand scale.
That's kind of the big picture. But I think it's important to remember that leadership isn't confined to just those individuals at the top.
Right. Are you saying leadership can be distributed?
Exactly.
Okay.
This is where we get into shared leadership.
Okay, shared leadership.
Where leadership responsibilities are shared among team members based on their expertise and the demands of the situation.
So it's not just like one person calling all the shots.
Right. It's more fluid.
Yeah.
More dynamic.
Like a basketball team.
Yeah, like a basketball team.
Where different players step up.
Exactly.
At different times.
Yeah, depending on their strength.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So let's shift gears a little bit.
Okay.
And talk about another critical aspect of organizational life.
Okay.
And that is decision-making.
Oh, decision-making.
Yeah. How do organizations make choices?
Right.
How do they allocate resources and set their course?
Right.
You know,
do they really follow those rational decision-making models?
Well, the rational model is a good starting point.
Okay.
But in reality, it's much messier.
I imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's much more complex.
Right.
You've got limits on information. You've got time constraints. You've got all these competing interests.
Right. And the human element.
Oh, the human element.
And all those messy things.
Exactly.
Like emotions, biases.
Yeah. All the stuff that doesn't fit neatly.
Gut feeling.
Right into a spreadsheet.
Yeah.
This is where the garbage can model comes in.
Garbage can model. That sounds intriguing.
It's a little messy.
Yeah. I'm picturing like a garbage can with all these problems and solutions swirling around.
It's a little chaotic.
Yeah.
But it highlights this unpredictable nature of organizational life.
Right. Where
decisions can emerge from this seemingly random confluence of events and people.
So it's not always this linear step-by-step.
We're not always A to B to C.
Right, there's that element of serendipity.
Yes.
And like being open to unexpected possibilities.
Absolutely.
And seizing the moment.
Yes, being in the right place at the right time.
Okay, so how does this all impact the individual?
That's a really important point.
Yeah.
Because when individuals feel like they have a voice in the process and that their input is valued, it creates this sense of ownership and commitment.
And if it's just top-down.
But if decisions are made in this top-down autocratic manner, it can lead to resentment, disengagement, and feeling of powerlessness.
Right, so it's not just the outcome.
Yeah, it's not just about the decision itself.
It's the process.
Yeah.
That's the process.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense.
And that leads us to another really vital aspect of organizational life.
Okay.
Communication.
Oh, communication.
How do individuals and groups within an organization share information, coordinate their activities, and build relationships? Yeah, communication is like the lifeblood of an organization.
It's how ideas are born,
Right.
decisions are made, relationships are forged.
Right, but with all this technology, like email, instant messaging, video conferencing, hasn't it become more complex?
It's this weird paradox.
Yeah.
Right? Technology has enhanced our ability to connect.
Right.
But it's also created new challenges.
Right.
So organizations need to be mindful of how technology is shaping those communication patterns, power dynamics, and even the culture itself.
So it's not just about adopting the shiniest new tool.
No, it's about using it effectively and ethically.
Right. And within this landscape of ever-evolving communication, there's storytelling.
Storytelling.
Yeah. Is that like telling stories about the company's history?
It could be that.
Okay.
It could be highlighting the achievements of employees.
Right.
You know?
Sharing anecdotes.
Yeah, sharing anecdotes. Because stories have this power to connect with us on an emotional level.
Right.
You know, they make information more memorable.
Right.
More meaningful.
It's like creating this shared narrative.
Exactly. Yeah. That brings people together.
Okay.
So speaking of change, how do organizations adapt
to these changing environments?
Right, to the evolving environment.
Embrace new technology, stay ahead of the curve.
Yeah, because change is inevitable, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the only constant.
The only thing we can count on.
Right.
But navigating change within an organization can be really tricky.
Right.
So one of the keys to successful change management is leadership.
Okay.
You need leaders who can articulate a clear vision for change, inspire others to embrace it, and skillfully navigate all that resistance.
The uncertainty.
Yeah, the uncertainty that comes with any transformation.
It's like steering a ship.
It is.
Through stormy seas.
You need a good captain.
Right, who can chart a course.
Yes.
But also inspire the crew.
Yes, to weather the storm.
Yeah. Okay, so how do you get the crew involved?
Well, I think it's about involving employees throughout the process, giving them a voice, a sense of ownership.
Because if people feel like it's being imposed on them?
Yeah, if they feel like they're not part of the process,
they're going to resist.
They're going to push back.
Right. And that's where communication comes back.
Communication is key. Yeah. You need to communicate clearly. Right. Consistently. Yeah. Address concerns, provide regular updates. Right. Foster transparency.
Right. Transparency can really build that trust.
Absolutely. Yeah. Reduce anxiety.
Okay, so we've talked about change, communication. Yeah. What about learning? How do organizations learn from their experiences, adapt to new challenges, and just continually evolve?
Because learning is the key to growth and innovation.
Right. It's how you stay relevant.
Exactly. And organizational learning can happen in so many ways. Okay. You know, you've got formal training programs, you've got informal knowledge sharing among employees. Right. It's about creating a culture where experimentation, feedback, and reflection are encouraged.
Okay. So it's like this collective brain.
Yeah, it's like a collective brain. Right. A repository of experiences and insights that can guide the organization forward.
And we call that organizational memory.
Exactly. Okay. It's about capturing and retaining knowledge so it can inform future decisions.
Okay, so how do you build that?
Well, it involves documentation, knowledge sharing platforms, creating a culture where people feel comfortable sharing what they know.
Right, and learning from each other's mistakes.
Exactly.
Okay, so it's more than just capturing information.
It is. It's about creating systems and processes that allow that knowledge to flow throughout the organization. So it's accessible and usable.
It's a learning ecosystem.
Yes, a learning ecosystem where knowledge is actively used and shared. Exactly. Okay, and how does that impact the individual? Well, if I were an employee, I would want to work someplace where I had opportunities to learn and grow, where my contributions were valued, and where my knowledge was shared and utilized.
Right, and that would make you feel engaged.
Yeah, it would make me feel like I was part of something bigger than myself.
Okay, cool.
So it's about creating a culture where learning is seen as a continuous journey, not just a one-time event.
Right, not just checking a box.
Exactly.
Okay, so that brings us to...
Innovation.
Innovation.
How do organizations generate new ideas? Right. Develop new products and services. Yeah. And stay ahead of the curve.
Right. Innovation is the lifeblood.
It is.
Of progress.
It's what drives us forward.
Right. And if you're not innovating, you're going to be left behind.
You're going to get stuck in the past. Yeah. So how do organizations foster this culture of innovation?
Right. Is it this balance between...
I think it's a delicate balance between creativity and structure.
Right. So you need to encourage experimentation.
Right.
Risk-taking.
Yes.
But also provide support.
Yes. Provide the resources and the support to turn those ideas into reality. Right. So you need to create an environment where people feel safe to challenge the status quo. Okay. To think outside the box. Right. To propose new ideas without fear of failure.
So you're talking about psychological safety.
Yeah, psychological safety is huge. Yeah. And this is where we get into this idea of entrepreneurship.
Entrepreneurship.
Empowering employees to act like entrepreneurs within the company so they can develop new products, services, processes.
It's like an internal startup incubator.
It is like an internal startup incubator.
Right. Okay, so you're tapping into all that ingenuity.
Yeah. Yeah, you're tapping into the collective ingenuity of your workforce.
Yeah, and then providing support.
Yes, giving them the resources they need to succeed.
Okay, and how does that impact the individual?
Well, when individuals feel like their ideas are valued, that they have the autonomy to experiment and take risks, and that they can see their contributions making a real impact. Yeah. It's incredibly motivating.
It's like they're not just cogs in a machine.
Exactly. They're active participants in the organization's growth and evolution.
Right. And this brings us to another important topic.
Oh, yes.
Ethics.
Ethics.
Right? How do organizations ensure that their actions are aligned with their values, that they treat their employees and stakeholders fairly?
Yes.
And that they operate in a socially responsible manner?
Ethics are paramount.
Right. Yeah. It's the foundation of trust, reputation, long-term sustainability.
It's the bedrock.
But in a world where organizations are constantly pressured to maximize profits, compete in the global marketplace, how do they maintain that ethical compass?
That's the challenge, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think it starts with leadership.
Okay.
Leaders need to set the tone.
Okay.
Not just by talking about ethics, but by actually living those values and holding everyone accountable to those standards.
So doing the right thing isn't just a slogan.
It's not just a poster on the wall.
Right.
It has to be embedded in the culture of the organization.
Okay. And it's not just about avoiding wrongdoing.
Right. It's about actively promoting social good.
Right. So using your influence
to
make a positive impact.
To make the world a better place.
Right. And how does this ethical climate impact the individual?
Well, imagine working for a company that you know was aligned with your values.
Yeah.
A company that was making a positive difference in the world.
You'd feel proud.
I would feel proud.
Yeah.
I would feel a sense of purpose. Like my work actually mattered.
Right. It's not just about a paycheck.
No, it's about contributing to something meaningful.
Right.
And making a positive impact.
Okay, so you're creating a work environment where people feel good about what they do.
Exactly.
And how they contribute.
But that's good for everyone.
Yeah, that's also... Okay, so this leads us to...
This leads us to power.
Power.
Yeah.
Dun, dun, dun.
The big P word.
Right. How is power distributed within organizations?
Right.
And how does it impact all this stuff we've been talking about?
Right. How does it impact decision-making, communication, relationships?
Right, because power is this complex.
It is.
And often invisible force.
Yeah. It operates behind the scenes.
Right.
A lot of the time.
Right. And it can shape dynamics in really profound ways.
It can.
Right. So how do we even analyze power?
That's a good question, and I think it's important to recognize that it's not just about formal titles and positions.
Right.
Power can manifest in many different forms. You know, control over resources, influence over decision-making processes, access to information.
Right. So it's about who has the ability
to
shape agendas, control the flow of information, influence outcomes.
And it's important to be aware of the potential for abuse.
Oh, absolutely.
Because power can be used for good or for evil.
Right. So it's not just who has it.
Yeah.
It's how they're using it.
Exactly.
And that leads to another fun topic.
Oh, boy.
Conflict.
Conflict.
It seems like conflict is kind of inevitable.
It is in any organization, especially given, you know, the complex interplay of all these things we've been talking about.
Right. So is it about trying to eliminate conflict?
Not necessarily. In fact, trying to avoid conflict altogether can actually be really detrimental.
Okay, so you're not suppressing it.
No, you're not trying to sweep it under the rug.
You're learning how to manage it.
Yes, you're learning how to manage it constructively. So you're creating a culture where conflict is seen as an opportunity for learning and growth.
Okay, so how do you build that culture?
Well, it starts with open and respectful communication.
Okay.
Establishing clear processes for addressing conflict and focusing on finding solutions that work for everyone involved.
So you're moving away from this win-lose mentality towards a more collaborative problem solving. Right. Okay. Yes. And all of this sort of ties into...
It all ties into creating a healthy and thriving organizational culture.
Right.
And a big part of that is diversity and inclusion.
Okay, diversity and inclusion.
How do you create a welcoming and inclusive environment for people from all different backgrounds, perspectives, and experiences?
Right, because those are essential for organizational success.
They are. They bring a wealth of perspectives, ideas, and talents. Yeah. And research has shown that diverse and inclusive organizations are more innovative, adaptable, and resilient.
Now, okay, so how do you go beyond just like having a policy to creating a truly inclusive culture?
I think it requires a deep commitment to equity and justice, a willingness to challenge our unconscious biases and those systemic barriers that exist, and a genuine effort to create a work environment where everyone feels valued, respected, and empowered to contribute.
So you're going beyond tokenism.
Yes, you're weaving diversity into the very fabric of the organization.
Okay, that makes sense.
And then we have performance management.
Oh, performance management.
Yeah.
The dreaded performance review.
Right, everybody's favorite topic.
Right, but isn't it ultimately about helping people excel?
That's the goal.
Right.
Ideally, a good performance management system should be fair, transparent, aligned with the organization's values and objectives.
So you're giving clear expectations.
Yes, clear expectations.
Regular feedback.
Regular feedback opportunities for growth and development.
It's not just a judgment.
Right. It's a learning experience.
Yeah, okay.
So you're evaluating past performance, but you're also setting goals for the future.
Right.
And providing the support to achieve those goals.
Is that continuous improvement?
It is continuous improvement.
Yeah, okay.
And speaking of things that are important to employees.
Yeah.
Compensation and benefits.
Oh, yeah.
How do you design compensation and benefits packages
Right.
that attract and retain top talent, but also reflect a commitment to fairness and equity?
Yeah, it's a key consideration for any employee.
It is.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's not just about offering the highest salary.
No, it's not just about the money.
Right, or the most perks.
Yeah, you need to think about the whole package.
Right.
You need to think about work-life balance.
Oh, work-life balance.
Yeah.
That's becoming more and more important.
It is, especially in today's always connected 24/7 work culture.
Yeah, it's about finding that sustainable rhythm between our professional and personal lives.
Exactly, and organizations that prioritize work-life balance often see real benefits in terms of morale, productivity, and retention.
So it's not just like a nice thing to do.
No, it's good for the bottom line.
It's good for business.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you want to create a culture where flexibility, boundaries, and self-care are valued.
Right. It's not about overwork and burnout.
No, you want to avoid burnout.
Right. Okay.
And then we can't forget about technology.
Oh, tech.
What is transforming the workplace?
At an unprecedented pace.
Yeah. How do organizations leverage technology to enhance efficiency, innovation, but also mitigate the risks and challenges?
Right, because it's a double-edged sword.
It is a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
You know, it can revolutionize the way we work.
Yeah.
But it also presents challenges, you know, data privacy, cybersecurity, the potential for automation to displace jobs.
Right. So you need to be strategic.
You need to be strategic and mindful about how you adopt and implement new technologies.
Right. So it's not just about chasing the latest shiny object.
No, it's about using technology to serve the needs of the organization and its people.
Okay.
So you've got to find that balance between harnessing the power of technology and making sure it's used in a way that benefits everyone.
Right. Okay. And this brings us to this broader question about
the future of work.
The future of work.
How are these emerging trends, like globalization, automation, the gig economy, shaping the nature of work?
Right. And the role of organizations.
It's a fascinating and rapidly evolving landscape.
It is. It's full of opportunities, but also uncertainties.
And challenges.
Right. So how do we prepare?
That's the question, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think adaptability, lifelong learning, a willingness to embrace new ways of working.
Right.
Those are essential.
So you're not clinging to outdated models. You're embracing change.
Yes, embracing change.
And hopefully creating a future of work that's more equitable.
Yeah.
Fulfilling and aligned with human needs.
That's the goal.
Yeah. Okay, so this brings us back.
This brings us back to the heart.
To the heart of our deep dive.
Of our deep dive into the world of organizations. Yeah. And I think there's one key takeaway I want to emphasize.
Okay.
Organizations are ultimately about people.
Right. It's easy to get lost.
It is easy to get caught up in the structures and the system.
The processes.
Yeah, process, all that stuff.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, organizations are made up of individuals, each with their own talents, motivations, and aspirations.
Yeah, so creating that thriving culture requires recognizing
and valuing
the contributions
of every individual.
each person.
Yeah.
Right.
And fostering a sense of belonging. Purpose and shared success.
So it's a work environment where people feel empowered.
Yes.
To learn, grow, and contribute.
Contribute their best.
And that their work has meaning.
Yes, meaning and impact.
Okay, cool.
So as you continue to navigate the world of organizations, whether you're an employee, a leader, or just an observer, keep that in mind. Organizations are complex.
Yeah.
They're dynamic. They're constantly evolving.
Yeah.
But they're about people.
Right.
And that's what makes them so fascinating.
Right.
And so full of potential.
No, this has been great. I'm really excited for the last part.
Me too. We're going to talk about some of the challenges and opportunities that lie ahead.
I can't wait. Welcome back to our deep dive. You know, we've explored a lot.
We have.
Like from the basic building blocks of organizations to the complexities of leadership,
right,
decision-making,
yeah,
role of technology.
All that good stuff.
Yeah. So now it's time to look ahead and explore, what are those challenges and opportunities that organizations are facing?
Yes. Because the world is changing rapidly.
It feels like faster than ever.
It does.
Yeah.
And organizations have to adapt.
Right.
To survive.
So what are some of the biggest challenges?
Well, one of the biggest ones, I think, is agility.
Right.
And adaptability.
Right. Because the days of rigid hierarchies and slow bureaucratic processes.
Those days are over.
They're gone.
Yeah, you got to be able to move quickly.
Right.
Respond to change.
Yeah.
Embrace new technologies.
Yeah, it's like navigating that whitewater rapid.
It is. You got to be able to adjust on the fly.
And that extends to the workforce too.
Absolutely.
Right.
You need people who are comfortable with ambiguity, who can embrace lifelong learning,
right,
who can collaborate.
And who can learn quickly.
Yes, learning agility is essential.
Okay, so we've got to be adaptable. What else?
Well, then you've got the increasing complexity of the global landscape.
Right, like organizations are operating in a much more interconnected world.
A much more interconnected and interdependent world.
Yeah, with supply chains spanning continents, customers all over the world.
All over the globe.
Like it's mind-boggling.
It's a lot to juggle.
Yeah, like conducting an orchestra.
It is.
With musicians all over the world.
Yeah, where everyone's speaking a different language.
Right.
And playing a different instrument.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so
organizations need new ways of thinking, new ways of collaborating, new ways of making decisions.
And it's not just being global.
No.
It's having that global mindset.
Yeah.
Right?
It's about understanding different cultures.
Yeah.
Different perspectives.
Different ways of doing business.
Absolutely.
Okay, so on top of that.
On top of all that.
We've got automation.
Oh, yes.
AI.
Artificial intelligence.
Right.
The robots are coming?
Right. They're coming for our jobs.
Well, some people say that.
Machines are becoming increasingly capable of performing tasks that
like humans used to do.
Yeah, that we thought only humans could do.
Right. So what does that mean for the future of work?
That's the big question.
Right.
And I think it's a little bit of a double-edged sword.
Right.
Because on the one hand, automation can free us.
Right, from those boring tasks.
Yeah, from those repetitive or dangerous tasks.
The things we don't want to do.
Exactly. So we can focus on more creative and fulfilling work.
Right. But then there's that fear of...
But on the other hand...
job displacement.
Right.
Yeah.
What happens to the people whose jobs are automated?
And that's where lifelong learning.
Yeah, this is where upskilling and reskilling becomes so important.
We've got to adapt.
We've got to adapt. We've got to learn new skills.
Right, like we're all students now.
We are all students.
Yeah.
In the school of life.
Right. Okay, so that's a challenge, but it's also an opportunity.
It is an opportunity for organizations to invest in their employees.
Right.
To create that culture of continuous learning.
Right, because if you support your employees... they're going to be more adaptable.
Absolutely.
More resilient.
And more engaged.
Right. Okay. So.
And then you've got the changing demographics.
Oh, yeah. Like millennials.
Millennials, Gen Z.
Gen Z.
They're coming into the workforce with a whole different set of values.
Right. It's not just about the paycheck.
It's not just about the money.
Right.
They want purpose. Right. They want flexibility.
You want to make a difference.
They want to make a difference.
Yeah.
So organizations have to adapt.
They've got to rethink their approach
to
talent management.
Leadership.
Culture, right.
It's not about the ping pong tables.
It's not about the perks.
And the free snacks.
Yeah, it's got to be deeper than that.
Right. It's got to be a work environment that's truly engaging, fulfilling.
And aligned with their values.
Right. Okay, so we've talked about the challenges.
What about the opportunities?
Oh, there are so many opportunities.
Okay, like what?
Well, one of the biggest ones is technology.
Okay, technology.
Technology is a double-edged sword, but it also presents incredible opportunities to connect with customers, partners, employees, in new and innovative ways.
Like social media mobile apps?
All of that.
Cloud computing, big data.
Yeah. The possibilities are endless.
It's like we can connect with anyone, anywhere.
Exactly.
At any time.
The world is our oyster.
Right. So how do organizations harness this?
Well, they need to be strategic.
Yeah.
They need to be innovative.
Yeah.
They need to use technology to create value for their customers.
So it's not just about automation.
No.
It's about connection.
It's about connection, building relationships, and creating a better experience.
Okay, and we've got to be mindful of the ethical implications.
Always.
Right.
Because technology can be used for good or for bad.
Okay, so another opportunity.
Another opportunity.
Sustainability.
Sustainability.
Social responsibility.
Social responsibility.
People care about this stuff now.
They do. Consumers are demanding it.
They're voting with their wallets.
Absolutely.
Right. So organizations need to...
They need to step up.
Right.
They need to show that they're operating ethically.
Treating their employees fairly.
Minimizing their environmental impact.
Right. It's not just about profit anymore.
It's about purpose.
Purpose, yeah. And that's a win-win.
It is a win-win.
Right. Because if you're doing good...
Yeah.
You're going to attract customers.
You're going to attract talent.
You're going to have happier employees.
It's good for everyone.
Yeah.
So the challenges and opportunities are all interconnected.
They are. It's complex.
It's a complex web.
There's no easy answers.
No easy answers.
Right.
It's about navigating this constantly shifting landscape.
Being adaptable.
Being adaptable. Being willing to learn.
Learning from your mistakes.
Experimenting.
Right.
Innovating.
It's not about being perfect.
It's about continuous improvement.
Continuous improvement, right?
Yeah.
So we've come to the end.
We've reached the end of our deep dive.
Our deep dive into the world of organizations.
And I think one of the key takeaways is that organizations are constantly evolving.
They are. They're not static.
No, they're living, breathing systems,
right,
adapting to a changing world.
And the individual plays a crucial role.
Absolutely.
In shaping that evolution.
Because organizations are made up of people.
Right.
It's the people who make them work.
So as we move forward in this world of organizations,
whether you're an employee, a leader, or just an observer, remember that organizations are complex, dynamic, and ever-evolving.
But they're about people.
They're about people.
And that's what makes them so fascinating.
And so full of potential.
Well, this has been an incredible journey.
It has.
Through the world of organization.
You've covered a lot of ground.
We have. And I hope everyone listening has learned something valuable about these complex systems that shape our lives.
Absolutely, because understanding organizations is essential for navigating the modern world.
It is, and I think we've only just scratched the surface.
There's always more to learn.
There's always more to explore.
So keep asking questions, keep learning, and keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible.
That's great advice. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive.
It's been my pleasure.
To the world of organizations.
Until next time.